Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good midnight, wherever you are. I'm glad to see you all again today. How is everybody? Everybody more or less okay? I see some thumbs up. Thank you. Let's see. We're in the middle of Lunar New Year celebrations for many parts of the world. So I hope your Lunar New Year is going well and you're celebrating and enjoying everything. And it's also Lent for the Christians, a very sacred season, and Ramadan for Muslims, another very sacred season. So it's a pretty special time of the year. So let's take a moment to appreciate that. And oh my goodness, let's have the first slide. We have very exciting things to do today. That's the one I should have had up while I was talking because it's such a beautiful slide. And today we are still working on verse 326. Yes, there it is. So let's recite. Everyone open their mics. Try to look at the Devanagari, but feel free to look at the I asked. And let's recite together on the count of three. 1, 2, 3. Tata Duna
Maya
Ka
Karyam Swa
Chita
Ulochita
Arina
Karinam Nirmalasya
Ula
Vasyasya
Alanko
Kalanko Napavet
Yata.
Yatha.
Look at all those nice long vowels. That's really good. Okay, let's have the next slide. So last week we learned a few things, some of which we already knew, but we emphasized them. We learned that translation is an art, not an exact science. We actually accomplished making a rough translation of the first half of our verse, which is chapter 3, verse 26 of the Bodhisattva Charyavatara. I think I said that wrong. Bodhisattva Charyavatara. We isolated the subject of this verse, the first half, guna. We saw that there was no verb in this first half. We identified two accusative case nouns, karyam and karinam, and both we noticed come from kar karoti, to make or do. And we translated the other words in the sentence, and we got a sense of participles, which are nouns formed from verbs, that although they are nouns, sometimes have the force of verbs, especially when the verb is missing from your sentence. So let's go to the next slide. So here's what we came up with, our rough translation of the first half of verse 26. Tata, in that way, dana, the incense purification action, maya by me, karyam is to be done. Then svakulochita karinam, it modifies that noun karyam. So done as the doing for my own fitting Buddha family. So here we see the lack of a verb, and we have the force of the verb in karyam, to be done. And we have two very complex nouns. One is the subject and one is the object. And we had to squeeze a lot of meaning into each of these very complex nouns. Duna, we saw, is a noun that has Ayurvedic meaning. Technically it's an incense burner, but we don't want to translate this as incense burner. It's an incense burner used to burn very special healing medicinal incense that is used to purify people or things that need it. So we're sort of translating it roughly as incense purification thing. Now, the second very complex noun is svakulochita karinam. And we saw grammatically that it's a compound noun and it has four words, four other nouns in one. And we notice grammatically that we don't decline the first three words, we only decline the last word in a compound noun. But as translators, we have to squeeze all that meaning into one word, one functioning part of the sentence. So we saw that sva is what the grammarians call a pronominal adjective. We don't really have that in English. I don't know about other languages, but sva is a word that means me, my own, myself. Kula is a word that means community. And we saw that in the context of this verse, the previous verse and the following verse, it has to do with when you take your bodhisattva vows and you join the family of the Buddhas. So we're adding that meaning in here. And then uchita is a word meaning fitting or suitable. So we had to squeeze all that in. And in our rough translation, we came up with the doing for my own fitting Buddha family, or perhaps something like taking action suitable to my Buddha family. But you get the sense of it. So we were really working with a literal translation, which we have here, the actual meaning of the words, which has to give rise to a later, more polished, less rough version. But that polished version cannot be arbitrary. It has to reflect all this meaning. So that's the art of the translator. Okay, so let's see. One other thing, and again, this is organic Sanskrit. So we dive into the deep end of the pool and we deal with whatever we find. We swim and we don't get discouraged because nobody's going to drown. But we notice that karinam is in apposition to karya. So this is a complicated grammatical phenomenon. And basically it means the second noun in the exact same case sort of adds meaning to the first noun in the exact same case. And a simple example, it's not as complicated as it sounds. A simple example in English might be, my dog, who is my favorite companion, went with me on the trip. So dog and companion are both in the nominative case, but their connection is that the second noun adds information to the first one. And that's what's happening here. Karinam, the doing, is adding information to karyam, what is to be done. Okay, any questions?
No, but it seems I hear this word karyam in Bhagavad Gita shloka.
I'm sure it occurs in Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita.
Yes, sorry. Bhagavad Gita.
Very good. Yes, it's a common word. What is to be done? I think it would probably occur in almost any book of Sanskrit that we could find. I'm guessing, like do or make. Good point. All right. Now we get to go and tackle the second half of this verse. So let's have the next slide, which may be badly laid out here. Oh no, it came out good. It's not good on my screen, but okay. So let's recite one more time the whole thing. And let's try to look at the Devanagari, but feel free to look at the Ayast. Okay, on the count of three. 1, 2, 3. Tata guna maya karyam sa kulochita karinam nirmalasya ulasyasya alako nabaved. Yes, good. Okay, now really quickly, the next slide. Now you should have memorized this by now. So in the rest of the class, we won't have the slide up. You'll either consult your memory, or you'll look at that beautiful index card you made, or you'll put this slide on your phone or pin it somewhere so you can consult it. Because until you really internalize all these different forms, the declension of a noun, a masculine noun ending in short you will need to consult something because we're going to use it as we try to figure out what case each of the words is in the second half of our verse and how we are to translate them. So let's recite. Elena, what?
I have a question. Is it this ending is only for masculine form, or it's ending for any like feminine or neutral, or only masculine form?
That is a great question. These endings are only for the class of nouns called masculine nouns ending in short Now, luckily, they're like 75% of the nouns in Sanskrit. But yes, isn't that nice? It's such a great thing. But feminine nouns have different endings, and there are 5 or 10 kinds of feminine nouns, 5 or 10 kinds of masculine nouns, and 5 or 10 kinds of neuter nouns. Andreas has a question. An easy method to memorize. Yeah, it's not that easy. I agree with you. The way I did it when I first learned Sanskrit, and this is a question about an easy way to memorize these 24 things. You just have to do it. Yeah, Elena points out that a lot of the duals are the same. You just have to remember where it changes. And that's also true, of course, in a couple of the dative and ablative plural. I am assuming we all remember that naidagal stands for nominative, accusative, instrumental, dative, ablative, genitive, locative, and then the vocative. But there isn't really an easy way to do this. And partly, I think, Andreas, that is why I like the index cards, because if I'm translating something or trying to look something up and figure out what it is, I have index cards for all the different masculine nouns, all the different feminine nouns. And I can just skim through them and say, I'm looking for something that ends in O Visarga. And then I just look quickly and I look on my card and I see, there's two possibilities, genitive and locative dual. But the reason I would like us to memorize this declension is because it's so common. And it gives you a sense when you're looking at a new sentence that comes up to you, what it might be. I hope that answers your question. Yeah, and Marina pinned it in the chat, which is great. Okay, so let's recite it once from nominative left to right all the way down. Yogaha, yogao, yogaha, yogam, yogao, yoga, yogena, yoga, yogai, yogaya. Come on, talk to me. I know there's like 20 of you out there.
Yogabhyam.
Yogabhyam. Let's do that one again. Yogebhya.
Gebhyaha. Yogebhyaha.
Yoganam.
Okay, you're way ahead of us. Let's go back to ablative. Yogat.
Yogabhyam.
Yogebhyaha.
Yogasya. Yogasya. Yogayoho. Yoganam. Yogayoho. Yogeshu. Yoga. Yoga.
All right.
Yoga.
Bear that in mind. All right. Now the next slide. Okay. So here's our verse. And we just reviewed what we did last week in the first half. And we reviewed our rough translation. Now we're going to tackle the second half of this verb. So as you remember, I highlighted in yellow the nouns that are declined, right? And the one in there that's tricky and possibly I should not have highlighted is karinam. Why is that one different from the other ones I highlighted? What gender is it?
Combined.
Say again.
Combined.
I'm not understanding you, Kathy. Are you saying bind?
Combined.
Combined. Yes, it is a combined noun, but the part that is declined here, garinam, we went over last week and decided it was a feminine noun. All the rest of the highlighted ones are masculine. But the reason I included it in the highlighting is because it's from the same root and it's in the same case. The other noun in the first half that is not highlighted is duna, which is also feminine. And we haven't learned the feminine nouns yet. But focusing on the second half of this verse, I'm going to maintain that these three are masculine nouns ending in short So let's take a look at those. We're going to consider this part of the sentence, a part of the verse, a separate sentence. Because as it happens in this verse, the two halves can be treated as separate meaningful sentences, although they are technically one verse. But they are in a single verse. So the first thing to notice is it starts the verse with tata and it ends with yatha. Now, in Sanskrit, these are one of Sanskrit's gifts to us, indeclinables, which I love. As Elena was very happy to learn that 75% of the nouns in Sanskrit are masculine nouns ending in short This is another gift. You don't have to worry too much. But tata and yatha often occur in the same sentence, almost always, because they are correlative conjunctions. So they link the meanings in two parts of a sentence or two parts of a verse. And last week we learned that tata means thus or in this way. And yatha, as you can see from my vocabulary list here at the bottom, means as, like, or which. So, thus is some case, which is something else. So thus, which, or in this way, just as blah, blah, blah. So you can see how the two parts of the meaning in a given sentence are linked when you use tata and yatha. Now here, Master Shantideva, of course, is being poetic, and he puts yatha at the end of the second part here. Usually you'd expect to see it in the beginning. So you'd expect to see yatha nirmalasya, etc. But it still works because word order in Sanskrit is not that important. It is in English and other modern languages. But here it's the case that tells you what role the word plays in a given sentence. Okay. Now, na is another given. It's an indeclinable particle. That means not. So you'll see that a lot. It's used interchangeably. You may also know by now that another way to negate something in Sanskrit is to add a to the beginning. And the famous example Geshe Michael always uses is, well, I guess that's an example of long A. I was going to say Ananda, but that's really a different issue. So let's not use that. But let's say we had kula, which means family. If we put a on the front of it, a kula, it would mean not in the family, not familial. So na is another way to make something negative. And so we've done yatha, na in the second line there that are not highlighted. And the last word there is baved. And baved is a verb. So let's have the next slide. Okay, so here's our verb. It is bu bhavati. And that is the way grammar books give you verbs. The first element, bu, is the Sanskrit root of the verb. So that's the basis. The second word there, and they always give you the two forms, is the third person singular of the present active tense. So does anybody know what pronoun we typically use with the third person singular in English? First person singular, yes. Thank you, Tatiana. He, she, or also could be it, he, she, or it. So the word bhavati means he, she, or it is, or he, she, or it becomes. And bhavati is a very, very common word in Sanskrit. You will see it a lot, so it's worth getting familiar with it. Bu does not give rise to the different forms of the verbs, first person, second person, third person. Bhavati gives rise to those. And what we do with bhavati is the same thing we did with the nouns. We figure out what the ending is, then we take that off, and what's left becomes the stem onto which we add any other kind of verbal ending that we want to add. So here, the stem of the word to be in the present active tense is bhav, and ati is the third person singular ending. We'll get more used to this as we go along. So the problem is that the word, let's look at the previous slide briefly. The word in our verse is bhaved, right? Let's go back to the following slide. And bhaved is a variant on bhavet, which we'll look at in 1 minute. So in our verse, the word that follows bhaved is yatha. And the reason I'm making a fuss over this is that this is going to be a case of sandhi, consonant sandhi. We'll get to that in a minute. So that the word should be bhavet, but the T changes to da. The ta changes to da. And this is the sandhi part. So cast your mind way back to when we studied the grid of 25 main consonants. The first 2 columns running vertically were hard letters. The last 3 columns were soft letters. The semivowels are soft letters, and the sibilants, well, the sibilants are hard letters. Okay, so the semivowels are soft letters, and the sibilants are hard letters. Just bear that in mind, because the ta in bhavet changes to bhaved for some reason. So bhavet in the second line ends with a ta. What kind of letter, thinking of our grid, is ta? Hard or soft? Which varga is it?
Hard.
It's hard. It's the 4th varga. It's the first letter in the 4th varga. So the first 2 columns are hard. So what kind of letter is da?
Soft.
Soft. It's the 3rd letter in the 4th varga. So that column, see, we have to do all this mentally because we can't keep looking at charts. You have to remember, and you are remembering. The 3rd column, the 4th column, and the 5th column in that grid of 5 by 5 is soft letters. Soft letters are in the 3rd column, the 4th column, and the 5th column. So since da is in the 3rd column, 4th row, it's a soft letter. Now, remember that in our verse, it says bhavedyata. So sandhi always involves the first letter of the next word. In this case, the next word is yatha. So what kind of letter is the ya?
Semivowel.
Semivowel, hard or soft though? It's
Soft.
not. It's not in a column, so it's hard to remember.
Soft.
Kathy?
Soft. Soft.
Yes, soft. It is a soft letter. All the semivowels are soft letters, and the sibilants are hard letters. So this is why it becomes important to know that. And one other thing about Baved, and we'll go deeper into this in a moment, is that it's in the optative case. So can we look at the previous slide briefly again? Yeah. So there you see that Baved is the third person singular of the optative case. And optative comes from the Latin word optare, which means to choose. So it has an indefinite sense. So it's not this happened. It's more like this could happen, or this might happen, or this would happen if something else happened. It's a little bit less definite. So the translation of baved in the optative case is it would be. Theoretically, it could be he or she would be also, but in this case, we're not talking about people, we're talking about concepts. Now, let's look at the next, then the next slide again, right? Yeah. So here we are. This is the present active tense of the verb bu bhavati. And I'm going to use a word here that I was trying to avoid, but this is a conjugation. Verbs are conjugated, nouns are declined. So I've been trying to emphasize declensions, declined forms, because I want us to internalize the idea that we decline nouns. Why am I saying this? Because for some reason, everyone from Geshe Michael on down mixes up conjugations and declensions. Yes, there is a word, Amirta, like bhumi. And bhumi comes from bu bhavati. It comes from that root, bu. Amirta is asking in the chat. Anyway, verbs are conjugated, see? Nouns are declined. The way I do it, another one of Christina's silly mnemonics, mnemonic being an English word that means an aid to memory. The way for me to remember it is to think ND, nouns declined. Then I think of different things that start with ND. Non-denominational, Notre Dame. There might be some combinations in your language that you can remember. And verbs are conjugated. So VC, I can think of venture capitalists or Viet Cong, or I live in the village of Oak Creek. So just mnemonics, ways of remembering that V and C go together and N and D go together. If this is too complicated, just forget it. It does help me, but it might be too confusing. So verbs are conjugated. Good, Kathy likes it. So let's recite this verb, and this is the way Sanskrit verbs are presented. First person, second person, third person, in that order. Every once in a while, you'll see the third person on top. So don't be put off by that. It's the same conjugation, just in a different order. Let's recite this, and we pay attention to the longs, the shorts, and the visargas. There's only one. Oh no, there's 4 visargas. Okay. So on the count of 3, let's go. Open your mics. I want to hear everyone's voice. Don't be shy. 1, 2, 3.
Bah.
Vame. Baha.
Bhavaha.
Baha.
Baha.
Bhavama.
Baha. Vamaha.
Second person.
Bhavamaha.
Second person.
Bhavash.
Bhavase. All short.
Bhavatat.
Bhavase.
Bhavatha.
Bhavata.
Bhavatha. Bhavati.
Bhavate.
Bhavata.
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 Bhavanti.
So most of those are all short vowels, with the exception of the first person. And there's a bunch of visargas. Other than that, pretty straightforward pronunciation-wise. Now, why did I highlight those 3? The answer is those are the most commonly found. So if you get really familiar with the endings for the first person singular and the third person singular and plural, you will be ahead of the game. And that will help you, because if you see ante at the end of something, you'll say, ooh, I think that's going to be a verb. You won't be right 100% of the time, probably, but you will often be right. Now, this is a very important verb. You'll run into it often, and it simple letter oo or oo.
Sorry, Christina.
Yes.
You
I
just
saw something going on. What is it,
you
Andreas?
just broke up. Could you repeat that last part? I think everybody was saying there was no sound. You were frozen or something.
Yeah,
Okay.
the connection was not good.
Sorry. Okay, can you hear me? Yay.
Yes.
Now we can.
Yes.
So I'm going to keep my video off because maybe that will help. Well, we'll see. I don't want to break up and lose the threads here. Did you hear me talking about participles?
No.
No? Okay, so I was saying that bu is a very important verb, bu bhavati, that it occurs frequently, and we will run into it often. You will actually often find it in its verb form, conjugations, and you will more often even find it in some noun form, whether it's a straightforward noun or a participle, which of course we treat similarly, except that participles often have the force of a verb in the meaning, in the translation. So let's take note of something grammatical here. the relationship of that simple vowel, oo, with the semivowel va. You see there's a oo in the root, boo, and a va in the stem form, bhavati. So what is the relationship between oo and va, do you think? Can you think of anything they have in common? What varga are they? Ooh. What part of your mouth are you using? Ooh.
The fifth?
Labial.
Yes, labial.
Labial.
Who is labial? And what varga is va?
Also labial.
Yes.
Varga, it would be the fifth.
Yes. Fifth varga, labial varga, both are in the same varga. Now, if you remember, earlier we saw that if you add an and an I, you get an I or an A. So similar with the semivowels, at least some of them. And the two that I'm thinking of are ya and va. In cases like this, they become treated more like vowels. So the u and the va are interrelated. And then what do you think would be interrelated with the o?
O?
Yeah. It would tend to be a ya. We'll go into that later, but I want you to understand when you see oo's and vas that they can be interchanged very easily. So they're all this because they're all the same varga. Now let's see. I've already told you this, but let's review. What would be the stem of bu bhavati that you would add the verbal endings onto?
Bav.
Bav, exactly. Now look at the third person singular. What is the ending for the third person singular?
Atti.
Ati. So in the bu bhavati grammatical information, it's always a third person singular. And now you see that what you take off that grammar information to create all the other forms of bu bhavati is ati. So you take the ati off and you add all of those other endings onto the bhav. So it's me for first person singular, vaha for the dual, maha for the plural, asi for the second person, ataha for the second person dual, and ata for the plural, ati for the third person singular, ataha for the dual, and anti for the plural. So bu bhavati will give you a lot of information about how to form the different verbal forms of the conjugation. Okay. All righty, let's see. Now, do you see in this chart anything like the verb that we have in our phrase, which is baved?
Plural second person. Bhavata.
Person, bhavataha. Nope, it's not baved.
Nope.
No, that's bhavataha. Bhaved has a long A and a D. I'm just looking for a yes or no answer here.
No.
No, no.
Good. That's because look in the top left corner. What tense is this?
Present active tense.
Active. And I mentioned when we were looking earlier at bhaved that it was a different tense. What tense does anyone remember what I said it was?
Could be future,
Yes, it's not exactly a future because
but it could be possible.
yes, it's a possibility
Possibility.
tense, and we call that the optative tense. So let's have the next slide. One more slide. Oh, you did that. Okay, it looks the same. No, you're right. I'm sorry. Here's the optative. If you look in the top left corner, it's the present optative tense. We're still not home free, though, yet. That's an American idiom. Do you see baved in this chart?
Yes.
Also not bavet. We have bavet.
Perfect. It's not baved, but something close in the third person singular. Baved.
Yeah.
Yes.
Bavet.
Okay. First, before we dive into this reasoning, let's recite the optative tense, okay, from the first person on. All right, let's see. 1, 2, 3. Baveyam, baveva,
Bhaveva.
baveve,
Bhavetam. Bhaveta. Bhavetam. Bhaveha.
Yeah. Yeah, a great one, isn't it? Rarely will you see that, but there it is. All righty. Now, we still do not see baved. And why is that? Let's go back to our verse. Next slide. Yeah. Baved, near the end there, the optative third person singular, meaning it would be.
It's a Sunday.
Yes, it's a Sunday. And what it is consonant Sunday. And what that means, and we sort of touched on this earlier, but we didn't quite finish it. What kind of a letter is the D in baved? What varga and what quality?
Soft fourth varga.
Soft fourth varga. And we saw in our chart that the proper form of the third person singular optative is bavet. Yeah, correct?
Yep.
So what kind of letter is the ta at the end of bavet? Varga and quality.
Fourth varga hard.
Fourth varga hard. Now, the beautiful Sanskrit ear, I'll turn on my video for a moment so you can see me pointing at my ear. The Sanskrit ear believes you cannot say bavet yata. They can't do that. So they have to say baved yata. Now let's say it with the ta. Everybody say with me with the ta. Bavet.
Bavet yata.
Bhavet yatha.
It's a long A.
Bavet yata.
Yata.
Bhavet yata.
Now let's try it with a D.
Yeah.
Baved yata.
Bavet
Bhaved
yata.
yatha.
Bavet yata.
Bhaved yatha.
Diata bavet yata.
Yeah.
All
Do you
the same.
notice a difference?
If you put the T soft, bavet yata, it's not so much difference with bhavedyata, tia. So it's like soft te, it's okay. But te is not soft.
Te, there is no soft te, ta in Sanskrit. To the Sanskrit ear, maybe not to our ear. You can't say bhavet yata. I really can't explain it.
With da, it sounds more soft.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's much nicer.
It is nicer. I think it's easier to say bhaved yata than bhavet yata because you don't pause as much. You don't have such a break. But I agree, it's a little iffy to our modern ears. Yes, we have a question.
For Russian speaking people, it's very easy tiata because we have for us it's like very easy, almost no difference. Tiata, diata.
Yes.
So we can soft to say soft tia, but for Sanskrit it's very hard, so it's maybe difficult.
Well, you have don't you have nyakis, nyaks, and things like that where you soften T's?
Yeah, we have Tatiana zum Beispiel. The name Tatiana, Tatiana. So we're not saying that Tatiana, we're saying Tatiana. So Tia, it's very soft, Tatiana in this case.
Yeah.
It's a name of the person, for example.
Yes, of course. And I'll tell you a dirty little secret about Sanskrit. They do combine the ta and the ya in certain words. But somehow in between words, they don't think you can say it. But there is a word, for example, tyaga, which means to abandon, and it's Tyaga. So somehow, as a compound consonant, they can tolerate it. As a sound between words, they cannot tolerate it. So in this case, it's consonant sandhi between words, as Andreas mentioned, and we have to change that proper form of bhaved, which is bhavet, into bhaved. And the reason it's a d is because it's the first letter in the fourth varga that's soft. So we change the t to the d. Now, what if it had been the second letter in the fourth varga? What is that letter? Ta. So what would we have to change it to because it's a hard letter before the ya, which is soft?
G.
Nope. Fourth varga.
Oh, fourth varga.
I asked about the fourth varga ta, T-H-A. We'd
have to change it to duh.
Yeah. We'd have to change it to the first equivalent soft letter in that varga. But since ta is aspirated, we couldn't change it to da, which is unaspirated. We have to change it to da, which is aspirated. Does that make sense? There is a very complicated sense to this set of formulas. But here we have one of our very first rules of sandhi. Before we had the vowel sandhi, which is when the short changed to a long when it was combined at the end of a word and the beginning of a word with two different Here we have a type of consonant sandhi, which is when a soft letter, a hard letter before a soft letter has to change to a soft letter, so it goes better with that following soft letter. So Sanskrit is very regular as a language, except that it has a lot of sandhi in it. But sandhi has its own rules. So it's good. All right, so let's go to the next slide. So we took care of the last three words in our vocabulary list for the second half of our verse. Yata, which I think we're going to translate which. It goes with tata from the first line, and it's a correlative. It connects two thoughts in our sentence. Bhaved, the third person singular, optative tense of bhu bhavati. And there, for the first time, I wrote bhu properly with a hyphen, because that's the root. And that's the way we write roots. And I put a slash mark in front of it, so you know it's a root. I should have put the root sign, but slash mark will do as well. Bhu bhavati. The meaning is it would be, and consonant sandhi has occurred. The ta in the proper form of the third person singular optative is bhavet. That ta before the following soft letter ya in yata has to change to a da of the word that follows, right? And na, which is so beautifully easy and simple, it just means not. Okay, so we don't have too much time left, but jump in. Next slide, please. Oh. Yeah, I think I want to look at, well, let's just go here. So here are the other words, because I wanted to show you the other words in that previous slide. Nirmalasya kulasyasya nakalanko bhavetyata, or something like that. See, it's easy when you memorize it. You don't have to keep writing slides. So kulasyasya is the second word in this line. And we discussed this before in last year's class, Organic Sanskrit 2. Much like karyam and karinam in the first part of the verse, and this is the beauty of Master Shantideva's style, karyam and karinam was a double accusative. This seems to be a double genitive. Now, consult your yoga chart, which Marina and Elena, I don't have put in the chat. I know Marina put it in there earlier. What is that one? No, that's something else. Look in the chat and tell me what ending asya looks like.
Genitive.
Looks like a genitive. Genitive singular. Is it exactly like the chart for genitive singular, asya, in terms of the vowels?
No, it's short. It's
right.
Longer.
Exactly. It's not exactly like a genitive singular. So what we came up with last time was that this is kulasya, which is the genitive singular of kula, meaning of the family, with an additional genitive ending put on kulasya. And this is very unusual. I personally have never seen this before, which doesn't mean that much. But if you had kulasya ending in a short and you added the genitive singular ending, asya, you would have vowel sandhi between those two and it would make that ending have a long Kulasya plus asya equals kulasyasya. Okay? So I'm open to alternate theories here. It's very unusual, and I am not certain that this is what it is, but I think it works. So the meaning would be something like of the condition of being in the family, the Buddha family, or of the condition of the Buddha family. So like the double accusative in the first line, this is a double genitive that sort of tends to reinforce that possession meaning in there. So he's really serious about it. And we will get a better sense of what it has to say when we put this half of the verse together in English next week. So right now we are just isolating words and analyzing their case, number, gender, or conjugation in this case. And we're going to be creating a rough translation. So let's go all the way to the last slide, please, Marina and Amirta. And I think that would be slide 27. Yeah. And I want to just say, holy mackerel. This is another American idiom, and it means, oh my goodness heavens, this is challenging stuff. Okay, we have plunged straight into the deep end of the pool, and it's a great reason to celebrate. I don't want anybody to get discouraged. Don't assume you need to understand all of this thoroughly today. We will keep going over it and over it. This is the Geshe Michael style of language, deep immersion, but we're going to try to have fun with it and understand more every day, every week. And please do not expect yourself to understand absolutely everything completely in one lesson. So just imagine in a month or two, if you went to an introduction to Sanskrit class, how much more Sanskrit you are going to know than anybody in that class. So you are amazing. And Marina, I put a nice link in the last slide. Do you have that one up? I want everybody to remember to consider registering for Bridge to the Diamond Way 5, which is starting on March 4th, which is next week. And you can register online and come for free. If you're short of money, just put 0 in the box, in the payment box when you get to it. ACI will find the money to pay. And promise me you will all rejoice tonight for this amazingly hard work you've done, learning even more Sanskrit than last week today. Promise. All right. See you next week. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you so for teaching.
Thank you for teaching.